Hi guys, this is Vineet, and in today's video we will talk about how we can manage servers in the registered servers view. So let me take you to my notes and let's discuss this topic. So how can we manage servers in the registered server views? So there are basically two resources we manage in SQL Server. Those are server and databases, and basically we use SQL Server registration view to manage these servers. And if our local server is not shown in the registration group, we need to update the local registration, and if our remote server is not shown in the SQL Server registration group, then you need to register the remote server. So what is the benefit or purpose of this registration? So once the server is registered under the SQL Server registration group, it basically saves out the connection information, and it also sends a server to a particular group for easy future access. And after you register a server, you can connect to a server and work with it by double clicking on it, and you can also disconnect from it by double clicking on it. So there will be automatic connection, and in case if there is no automatic connection, we can right click on the server and select a new query option to do a force registration. So let me take you to the SQL Server. Here we have a register server view. In case it is not visible, you can close it. Let me bring back that view, register server view. So let's see. So here we have register server, the third option in the view menu. So click on it, it will open the registered server window, right? And basically we have four types of engine. First one is database engine, then analytic services, then reporting services, then integration services. So under the database engine, we have local server groups where we have subgroup engineering, and under the engineering subgroup we have a instance of one of our SQL servers that is running on this machine, and we have another instance which is the default instance called the local host. So for now, let me go ahead and delete this registration information. So what I'm doing is I'm just deleting this registration information, and also I'm deleting this group engineering which was created earlier. So by default we get this view, and let's go ahead, let's close that. So let me close SQL Server Management Studio as well. So let me open it back up again. I'm waiting for it to open. So once the SQL Server opens up, it asks you for the connection details. So let me show you. So SQL Server is up, and it comes up with a window where it gives you the connection window to specify the server instance you want to connect to. So here we have two instances running. One is localhost and another one is instance 1. We can select which one to connect to, and then we click on connect, right? So here every time we need to provide the authentication details. For example, if I disconnect and will try to connect it again, it will again open up the window, and it will ask whether you want to perform Windows authentication or SQL Server authentication. We need to pass on these details as well and click on connect to connect. However, instead if we use the registered server windows, that providing that information is not required, because server connection information get registered with along with the server. So let's go back to the notes. So this is basically the purpose of registration server, register server views, and now we will go through some of the demos. So what are these demos? So basically we will tell you how can you register a connected server, and how can you register a new server, how can you copy registration details and the server group information from one computer to another, and we will also show you how you can edit the registration properties, and we will show you how you can connect to a server, disconnect from a server, and how you can move a server between the groups, and how you can delete the server registration. This one we have just shown you in this video in the beginning, how you can delete the server registration information. You can right click on the server and just select delete to delete the server registration information. So let's go on to the first step, how you can register a connected server. So let's go back to SQL Server. So this view should be open, register server views, and so any server in which you are to which you have connected through Object Explorer can be registered easily. And registration also saves the current connection information inside the server to a group for easy future access using a register server view. And to register a connected server, you can follow the following steps. So we need to use this Object Explorer view. So for example, if we are connected to say localhost over here, how we can add this to the register server view? Let me show you. So we need to right click on the server to which you are currently connected, and there is an option to register it. So there is a third option, you can select register to display a new server registration dialog box coming up here. So on the general tab, the current values for the server name and authentication type are filled for you, although the registered server name option, so here we have a registered server name, is set to the same value as the server name defined here. And we can modify this value over here. We can say it's our default instance. Alright, so you can modify this value. This is the dummy name for this actual server name, localhost. And we can also add the description like default SQL Server instance used by us. Okay, we have added the description, and now let's move to the, here we are using Windows authentication so that it connects automatically. And let's go on to connection properties, and where we can specify the database to which you want to connect. So we want to connect to the default database, and we can also specify the network options like how much should be the packet size and the connection timeout settings, etc. And whether we want to encrypt this particular connection, we can check this checkbox for that. And we can test our settings before we can save the actual server registration. So we can click on test to see if connection is successful. So connection is successfully tested. So here we can also browse for server. I think we can leave this option for now. So it basically, here we have to specify the database to which it should connect, the server we are registering by default, which database it should connect to. So if we chose the default option, it will connect to the master database. But if we want that it should connect to a Northwind database, we can specify it here. So these are the database option, default database options, and we can test the settings. And after the testing is done, okay, so we have tested the settings. So in our case, test settings are successful. In case you get an unsuccessful error message, we need to verify the settings and then make the changes as required. And SQL Server doesn't allow remote connections by default, so we need to change the configuration settings for that, for the remote connections. For now, we will just save this connection information. So let's save it. So we have registered this local server through this Object Explorer window, so it will come under the local server group. So it has come by the name default instance. Alright, so by default, any server we register get added to the top level group, which is the local server group. And if we want to move a server to a new level in the server group hierarchy, we need to right click the server and point to tasks, and then we can choose the move to option. So here we don't have any additional subgroups defined, so we cannot move it to any subgroup at present, and so therefore we will leave this step for now. But for example, if we have a, let's create a new server group. So let's say we have an engineering group and we want to move this server there. Let's create an engineering group, and we want to move the default instance from under the local server groups to the engineering group. What we can do, right click on the server name, go to task and select the move to option. So it will open up the move server registration dialog box, and we need to specify which group we want to move it to and then select OK. So our server has now moved to engineering group. Alright, so we have seen how you can use the Object Explorer window to register a server. So let me also show you how you can register a server using the register server view itself. So for now, let's remove this registration information by selecting delete. Let's delete it. So now we will use this register server view to register the servers. So basically there is no requirement that we should connect to a server in Object Explorer to register a server. You can also use the register server view to register a new server. So how you can do that? So in the register server view, so right now this is the register server view, and we can use the toolbar to select the type of server you want to connect to. So we have chosen database engine, so here we will add our server, and we have expanded the available group as well. So we have expanded a local server group, and in the register server view, right click the group we want to add the server to, or we want to register server to. So for example, if we want to register a server under the engineering group, and we need to right click on that, and we need to perform a new server registration. So this will open up a new server registration dialog box as shown previously as well, and in the server name box we need to type the FQDN or the host name of the server. So here we are just using localhost, which connects the default instance of the SQL Server on this machine. And we can also use the FQDN option, and we need to provide the authentication details. Here we can specify default instance, specify the description. So we are saying this is default instance. So we have specified the connection information, and then we are specifying that it should connect automatically to the Northwind database. So let me select that and hit OK, and we can test it as well. Test is successful. So we have provided the authentication type to Windows authentication, or SQL Server authentication can also be used. Let's see what type of authentications are there. So some other authentications are there as well, so you may choose as per your requirements. And so basically let's talk about two type of authentications. So if we use Windows authentication, basically it uses our current domain account and passwords to establish a database connection, and this authentication type works only if Windows authentication enabled and you have appropriate privileges, and rest of the authentication you use is SQL Server authentication, where you need to specify the login name and password to connect to this database instance and the database. So for now we are using Windows authentication. So SQL Server authentication allows you to specify a SQL Server login ID and password, and we can also, if we use SQL Server authentication, we can also check the remember password checkbox so that it can remember the password information as well for this connection. And we can also encrypt that connection under the connection properties. We can check this checkbox. Alright, and we have specified the connection settings as well. We have specified the database instance to connect to. We don't want to change any network configuration, and we do not want to encrypt the connection. So register server name was filled as localhost earlier. We have changed it to the default instance, and we have tested the settings as well. And if the testing fails, you need to confirm the information, whatever fields you're filling up, you need to re-verify to make sure that those are correct. And once our connection details are okay, we can click save. So now default instance is added under the engineering group. So we can also register the previous registered SQL Server earlier versions as well, and we can use the same register server view. So let's remove that registration. Give me a moment. So guys, we were talking about how you can register the previously registered SQL Server 2000 servers or any other earlier versions, how you can register them. So in the register server view, we can use the toolbar to select the type of server you are registering, such as database engine, which is already selected, and we need to right click the local server groups or any other subgroups to which we want to make the add the server registration. And we need to point to tasks and then select the previously registered servers. So any servers that were registered on this computer previously, that information can be fetched off. If there was earlier instances or earlier versions of SQL Server installed on these machines, so those registration will be picked up automatically. So on this server, so far we have installed only default instance and the instance 1 of SQL Server. So let's see what is going to happen when we select previously registered server. So there were no previous registered servers information found on this computer. So there were no installation prior to this SQL Server installation, and on this system we are using like SQL Server 2016, I think, or maybe 2012, and so far there are no any previous registration. And if we have the registration information on any other machines, that information can be imported as well using the task import option. And similarly, we can export the registration information out using the export option from here. So let's go on to next topic. So far we have talked about how you can register a connected server, how we can register a new server. Now let's talk about how you can update the registration for the local servers. So that is the another steps we have missed out on. So how you can update the registration for registration for local servers. Alright, let's move on to SQL Server and let's try that option. So under engineering group, what I'm doing is, so how we can add the existing local server registration details, because we have removed all the registration, but yeah, those registration can be added as well. So local servers are registered automatically in the most of the cases, and if we have added or removed the SQL Server instances on local computer and those instances are not displayed, and therefore we need to update the local server registration. And basically updating the registration information ensures that currently configured local server instances are shown in the SQL Server Management Studio. And how we can update this local server registration information? So in the registered server view, we can use the toolbar to select the type of server you are registering. So we are registering a database engine, and we need to right click on the local server groups and point to tasks, and we need to select the option register local server. So here we have two instances running, so it will register two servers, not two servers but two instances. So it has added both under the local server group. Same can be done with this as well. So this doesn't give you a option. If we right click on any subgroup, it does not give you the option to import the local registration server information. So that option is only available when you right click on the local server groups and select task, and we can register the local server. So we have shown you that. Let's move on to next topic about how you can copy the server group and registration details from one computer to another. But prior to that, let me move one of the instances to the under the engineering group. And now let's once it is moved, now let's try to figure out how we can copy the server group and registration detail from one computer to another. So after the server registration and done in SQL Server Management Studio, and once you place the servers under the appropriate groups, and for example we need same type of grouping information on another server as well, which is running SQL Server, and in case we might find that we want to use the same registration information on the another computer running SQL Server. So SQL Server Management Studio or the registration server view allows us to copy the registration information from one computer to another by using the import export processes, and we can also copy the registration details with or without the username and password that is stored along with the registration information. And to export the registration information or to copy the registration information and the group information on a file on one computer and import it to another computer, we need to perform the following steps. So we are inside the SQL Server Management Studio, and here we have the registration and group structure details. So register server view is opened, otherwise you can open it from the view menu. Alright, and in the register server view we can use the toolbar to select the type of server we want to work with. So here in case we are using database engine, and we need to right click the local server group entry, and we need to point a task and select the export option to display the export register server dialog box. So there is an option for server group. So here we need to select the startup point from where the export process will begin, and we can start copying registration information from any level in the group structure. For example, we want to export information this point beyond, say from engineering point beyond, we can select that point. In case we want to export everything starting local server group, we can select that. So to copy a structure for top level group, all its subgroup, all the registration detail for all the servers, select local server group entry. And to copy the structure for a subgroup, its subgroup if there are any, and all registration detail for all the related servers, select a subgroup. So in this demo we will be exporting everything starting local server group. And if we just want to export the details for the registration detail for just one server, we can select that as well. But here we will export everything starting local server groups. So the server group structure and registration details are exported to a registration server file with which has a reg SRVR extension basically. So basically by default, if we talk about, this file gets created in the current user which is logged in under the documents folder, but we can specify a specific location using the export option. We can click on this 3 arrow button and specify the location. So for example, here we want to export the file to documents folder. We can select, and we can specify the name of the file as well. So my PC server group server registration details. I'm naming the name of the file, so select save, and we can check or uncheck this option if we want. If this is checked, the username password set with the server registration will not get saved in the exported file, so this option is checked. So in our case we are exporting those passwords, so let's click on OK after that. So The server group structure and registration details. We have talked about which file it will export. The file will be created with the Registered Server extension, and we have specified the export option. And let's okay, that is fine. So yeah, my file name will be this Registered. So this is the name of the file. I've given a big name, and the rest of the item is okay. And we can also place a registration server file on a secure network share instead of a local drive if we want to access it on another computer using the network share option. So otherwise, if we are saving the file locally on the system, that file can be copied to a destination computer later. And so by default, the current authentication details for the server connections are not exported to a save file. And if you want to export the username and password, we need to uncheck this checkbox, which is do not include usernames and password in the export file, and need to click OK, and we get the message the export is successful. So let's see what file got created over here. Let's quickly go on to documents, and here we have this file. Let's see if we can read it using a notepad. So let's select open with. Let's see what option does it give to us. So under open with, try to open it with notepad to see if you can get any details. So yeah, basically it creates a XML schema with all the details. Under the XML tags, it has created a structure, and this file can ideally be best open with the Internet Explorer to get the more better view. So here we select more apps, use the Internet Explorer. So this is our XML document, which we can check here. All the information is there for the registration server that we are using. So here we have file in this format. So let's close out this file, and we are back to the SQL Server Management Studio. So our export was successful, and we got a dialog box confirming this. And if there is a problem, we can check on the problem. And after the file gets generated, we can copy out this file in case this is generated to another computer. And simply earlier we used the export process in this case. So for example, we want to import the same file in this computer, treat it as another computer. So we want to import the same file. That can be done easily. So here we have deleted all the registration details and the group details as well. So under local server group, you can right click and go to tasks and select the import process instead of export, and we can specify the location for the import file, which is here, and we can click open and click OK. So everything will be imported. So here we see we have all the instance information as well as the registration group information. Alright, okay guys, so we have shown you this step, how you can copy the information, and this is done, and how you can import information from one computer to another. Now we'll talk about how you can edit the registration properties. So here we have this registration. So how we can edit its properties. You can change the server registration properties at any time by right clicking on the server entry and in the register server view in the SQL Server Management Studio, and select the properties, and this will open up the edit server registration properties dialog box, and we can change any of the properties here, like the server name, the register server name given over here, connection properties. The only properties which we cannot change is the server type. So server type is the database engine. This we cannot modify it over here because it is already registered under the database engine. So this is the property we cannot modify in the edit registration properties dialog box. Rest of the properties we can change. We can change the connection properties, encryption properties, and any other properties. So that is fine. So that step is done. So Now let's go back to the nodes, and next we will show you how you can connect to a server in the registration server view. So let's go back to the SQL Server Management Studio, where the registered server view is open. If it's not open, you can open it from the view menu. So once you register a server, connecting to it is very easy. You can right click the server entry in the registered server and then select the new query. So it will open up the new query against this particular server. So here we have default database as Northwind. So I don't know why it has taken master, not sure. Let me check the properties of this. So to check what is the default database configured for here. So here we have the default database. We need to specify which database it should connect to. That is Northwind, and then we need to save the settings. So if you right click on it, do a new query, it will connect automatically the Northwind database. So we have selected new query. So one of the things we can do is do a new query. Another thing which we can do is we can open up Object Explorer from here, which will automatically connect to this server in the Object Explorer. Rest I can open up a new query, that is also fine. And we can also double click the server entry to establish a connection and then work with the server in the Object Explorer view. So let's try to double click. So if we do a double click, it will automatically connect to that server in a Object Explorer window. Another option would be to right click and select the Object Explorer option. So yeah, that's easy. Just double click, it will connect to the server in the Object Explorer window. And SQL Server Management Studio connects to other servers that are running SQL Server by using the network protocol set in the registration properties. And if you have disabled the network protocol or remote access entirely for the server, you won't be able to connect to that server in the SQL Server Management Studio. And we need to make the appropriate changes in the registration properties basically, or in the surface area configuration. And how we can disconnect from a server. So once we are done doing our work with that server, we can disconnect from it. This eliminates the back and forth communication to the server. And basically disconnect from a server, right click on the server entry in the Object Explorer view and select disconnect from the shortcut menu. So we have disconnected from the server. So this is done. And we had shown you earlier how you can move a server to a new group, but let's go through that once again. So here we have a default instance running under the local server group. So if we want to move that server to the engineering group, let's see how we can do that. So we need to right click on the server. We want to move in the register server view. We can point to tasks and we select the move to option, and it will open up the move server registration dialog box. In the move server registration dialog box, we can expand the local server groups and select a subgroup to which we want to move the server registration. So we have selected that, click OK. So now both the server instances, server registration connection information is under the engineering subgroup. And we can delete the server registration as well. We had shown you earlier. You can right click on it, just say delete. So server registration is deleted. After that, let's delete the engineering group as well. So this is how the server registration get deleted. So this part is also done. So guys, I think we are done with this video, and I thank you so much for your time on this. And please do subscribe to my channel if you really like this video. Please hit the like button, and if you want to make any contributions to this channel, there is a Razorpay link in the description section of this video. So guys, thank you so much, and you have a wonderful day ahead. Bye bye.